All right, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Baseline Scoop. I'm your host here, Zach Ciavolella, and today I'm joined by two extremely special guests. That's my man, Justin Crosby, and my man, AB Aaron Bell, both from Philly Sports Network. A couple great up-and-coming writers, entertainers just in the sports industry, I'll even say. So, Justin, starting with you. Justin, how you doing today, man?
Doing good, man. I'm doing good. Deserve some good news, so I'm doing better.
Yeah, good. Yeah, absolutely. Glad to hear. AB, how about you? How you doing, man?
I'm doing ecstatic. Like he just said, once the news got broke, I was like, listen, I'm ready to go. Let's get on here. Let's talk about this thing. Let's do it. So I'm ready.
Yeah, for those listening at home, our boss man Liam Jenkins, he's referred to AB multiple times as the smiliest man in all of Philly Sports Network, and let me tell you, that grin is ear to ear at the moment. So we will get to what exactly that news is we're talking about in just a little bit. But before we get there, really what we're going to be focusing on the pod today is the trade deadline as a whole for the Sixers, for the league in general. And the first place that we're going to start is there was actually the first big. So the trade deadline, obviously, is just one single day, but in the NBA, it's almost like a week-long celebration almost. So right. The first big deal of the trade deadline happened today. Portland Trailblazers, LA Clippers. It's honestly like it confuses me, this deal. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, but I'll let you guys comment first. So the deal was Portland sending Norman Powell and Robert Covington for Eric Bledsoe, Justice Winslow, Keon Johnson, and a 2025 second-round pick. That's the Detroit Pistons second-round pick. So that's what they're getting, those players for Robert Covington and Norm Powell. AB, what do you think about that trade? You know, do you think that what is your excuse for Portland even? I don't even know where you want to start with that.
Me neither. Like we spoke right before we got on here. Once I seen the trade, I was a little baffled as far as, like you said, what the Blazers were trying to actually do here. I know they're in limbo, essentially trying to figure out what they're going to do with Dame, what they're going to do with CJ, what they're going to do with the team overall. And to see them give up key contributors, especially Norman Powell, because obviously the key in that trade is Norman Powell. That's the key in that trade, is Norman Powell going to the Clippers, because the Clippers look like they're more so looking at the future as well, giving another wing to PG, basically try to keep Kawhi and PG in LA. To me, it looks like the Blazers just more so just punting on this season, and also it gives me a little bit of a glimpse into the future as far as what they're trying to do. That I do believe that someone will be moved. Not sure if it'll be Dame, not sure if it would be CJ, but definitely there's going to be a whole reconstruction when it comes to that team in general, on top down, essentially like that. But you even mentioned it right before you get over it, what they gave up and what they received back within that deal is what blows me. Like, no first rounders in it. We're talking about second rounders, not the NFL, where it's like you can find value in the second round. After the first 10 picks in the NBA, it's a crapshoot after that, essentially like that, when trying to find talent that actually sticks in the NBA. So I'm not even sure. I definitely would like to see any some corresponding moves as far as what they do later on in the season, especially leading up until the trade deadline, because I do believe they aren't done. I just want to see if it's more so a blow up, whereas they're getting rid of everyone, or is that with just a subsequent move to another move that they're trying to do? So we'll see.
Yeah, no, I hear you loud and clear. Just real quick before we get to Justin, I just want to go over a couple key stats for Norman Powell. So, his contract, in my opinion, isn't egregious, because when you look at the production, it's pretty there. So in 33 minutes, he's putting up 18.7 points. And that's all shooting over 45% from the field, over 40% from three. And he's a pretty nice free throw shooter too, right around 80% there. So, I mean, this man can shoot. He's a good offensive player. And he's 6'4" with a 6'10", 6'11" wingspan. So, like, there's some defensive ability there too. So this, to me, makes no sense for Portland. But Justin, what do you think, man?
So first, I don't want to. So Robert Covington is an expiring contract, but the Clippers got better. The Clippers got better specifically because they're in that like right now that battle for like 6, 7, 8 or the play in. And I think they firmly now are going to be that 6th seed or whatever and try to avoid the play. And I do think that at this point, for the most part, they'll probably be able to avoid the play in. They've already been playing well. I mean, 500 ball, but without both their superstars,
Exactly.
you know, it goes to show how good of a coach Ty Lue is and motivator that he is. But I definitely think the Clippers just got better. Norman Powell, like you said, solid guy. Robert Covington, solid wing, helped them defensively. They don't have to necessarily lean on all the young guys they were leaning on earlier on this season, like Coffee or Brandon Boston Jr. Not to say that they're bad, but you can lean on some veteran guys to see, how you do. And then for Portland, it has to be, like AB said, a subsequent move coming, and it has to be a CJ move. There's been a lot of smoke around New Orleans being, interested in CJ, but it's like, what? I don't know. Like, you guys aren't winning now.
Mm-hmm.
You won't win next year. So what is maybe next year, but what is like if Zion comes back healthy or whatever, who knows? But, it has to be another move. And then when you look at the trade, Eric Bledsoe, okay, is he going to play? They're going to buy him out. Like, I think I read earlier today that it'll cost him like $3 or $4 million to buy him out. So nothing too crazy, but is he going to be there? Then Justice Winslow, he almost was out the league after being like a key player on the Heat for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Keon Johnson, I saw one Blazers fan trying to make like a sensitive move, like, oh, we didn't get any first. Somebody was like, oh, we didn't get any first round draft picks. He's like, well, Keon Johnson was a first round draft pick, so that counts too. And it's like,
sure it does.
No, it doesn't. He has potential, but
no, listen,
he's 19 years old.
Me personally, like he's 19 years old. First of all, after the picks used, it's like driving a new car off the lot. Like that value it tanks nearly. Like exactly. It goes so far down. And Keon Johnson in particular. So he was Jaden Springer's teammate at Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And so, when you were looking at the two players at Tennessee, the unfortunate consistency between the two was that neither looked like they had a jump shot, right? Mm-hmm. However, Springer had so much more potential. He's a better athlete than Keon Johnson is, and mm-hmm. So there's that pathway thanks to that athleticism, and we're even seeing that already with Jaden Springer, that I just don't believe to be there for Keon Johnson. So to me, that's like, well, he's basically a second round pick in value. So adding him is not much of anything if you ask me. When I first saw the trade, come across my screen, I thought, all right, so this is before I even saw the details. It's like, so Norm Powell, Rocco, they're going to LA. So probably it's just like Luke Kennard, Marcus Morris coming back to Portland, right. Two teams that are just, refusing to give up or anything with it. It's like, no, because that's not the case at all. And it's like the Clippers don't have a first round pick until like 2028 or maybe even beyond after they traded for Paul George, like something absolutely insane. Right. Aside from, the worst in a swap. So it's like, if you're not even getting a younger guy like a Luke Kennard or someone who fills a position, a need for you, like a Marcus Morris, like, what are we even doing here? Like, I know you want to get under the tax, but you could have just traded Rocco. There are people, there are teams who you could have had a 3-team trade where you move Rocco, they move salary to, Oklahoma City's always looking for more picks. Yeah. And you let the other team pay OKC for taking that money on. And then, so, already you're below the tax. So it makes no sense to me. Norm Powell has value, man. Like, it's just, it's crazy.
And I think that part of it too is, I don't want to say like revisionist history, but basically I see the new GM and new ownership basically trying to reverse some of the moves that the old GM and the old ownership has really done. So, yeah. A part of that is, okay, we're a small market team. All right, we're not going to contend. Our stars hurt. Let's try to get into the tax. I get it. But like the most valuable thing you could possibly get back in this trade and could be the 2025 second round pick of Detroit, because Detroit ain't never going to be good again.
No, I don't think you're wrong there. But so you mentioned, we talked about a CJ trade, which I fully agree. I think that is next for Portland. I think that's going to happen before the deadline. Yeah. And I get that New Orleans is interested in, and so that, which I don't get why New Orleans is interested, but I understand that they are interested. And so maybe that's the only thing getting in the way of this. But in my mind, it's curious, like, well, why didn't you trade Norm to New Orleans? And why doesn't New Orleans want Powell over McCollum? He's younger, he's cheaper. Arguably, he'll be better in 2 or 3 years because McCollum really could decline over the next couple of years. You know, we've seen a little more injuries. He's on the wrong side of 30 now. And again, just for price, if nothing else, I mean, I don't get it. If you're New Orleans, I don't get it. If you're Portland, like whatever, but they had to make some serious moves or it's a complete F on the entire season. But what do you think about, you know, Dame now? What does he do? Like, AB, what do you think his do you think he's cool with this? Is this something that he endorses, or is he kind of, you know, starting to panic a little bit more and maybe we see a trade in the offseason?
Right. I feel like it's a little and initially I felt like that's where he was at initially in general. He just was in a space of trying to stay loyal, trying to stay true to the team that he's always said he wanted to be with since the start. But as you see, as the year went along, how the team turned out, it's like, why would I want to stay? So anyone would have that thought of, should I stay, should I go? And I feel like the team in general, just to touch on it real fast, as far as this is probably a desperation leap as well, as far as trying to do something with the emergence of Alfred Simmons, Simmons, right? With him coming up, getting better, progressing, I guess it opens up them to more being able to move a CJ and maybe try to bring something back to try to coerce Dame to stay. So I feel like this is an organization move to try to keep Dame, but will Dame stay? I'm not sure. I do believe he is a person where he is loyal. He does have values and morals. I mean, he stayed in Portland for as long as he did already. So it's like, that lets you know already that that's the type of person that he is. But after a while, you get to a point where you have to really think about your career. And I feel like I did see something yesterday. I wish I had it with me, about Dame. If he was to be traded, he would like to stay on the West Coast and everything like that. So there's been some rumblings. There's been some smoke in that area of Dame Lillard. So it definitely could be a situation where Dame could want to be moved. But it's definitely, if anything happens, it won't be this year for sure. It'll definitely be in the off season at the earliest, essentially.
Yeah. What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I do. Well, I agree, but they kind of making it really, because it's this whole thing about Dame doesn't run from the grind. The grind is about to get real hard with all these different players and stuff like that. Like, and I like Simons a lot. He's definitely grown, but I mean, to base your future around
right
Simons and Dame, like, I'm not saying that Simons is not good, because he is good, but I just think that's not going to win you a championship.
Yeah,
I'm sure they're going to try to get rid of Nurkic too at the deadline. You know,
nobody wants them, but they're going to try and do it.
But you know what I mean? So it's like, it's just a situation where I just think all around, I think it started because this whole, like, and nothing against Chauncey Billups either, but at the time it's just like, he jumped. Like, it just started from there. I feel like there were better candidates. I read a lot of people felt like Becky Hammond was the right thing, but Portland didn't want to do the first female coach because maybe that would upset Dame. Who knows? But then, you know, all this rumblings in the summer and everything like that. And then, like, I hate the fact that players say, oh, I didn't say that, so it's not true.
Yeah.
Well, just because it didn't come out your mouth doesn't mean that you didn't say it to somebody else. James Harden clearly has done it. You know, Dame Lillard clearly has done it. So it's like, yo, bro, if you want to bounce, it's okay. Like, Kevin Garnett finally bounced, and look what happened to him. He was able to cement his legacy in NBA history because he got that. Like, Dame was already on the top 75 NBA list with no championship. Imagine where he would be placed on the top of guards.
Sure.
When it's all said and done, he wins a championship.
I mean, with a ring, he's top 50. I don't know where he landed on the top 75 already, but I think he's top 50 with a ring.
Yeah. So, I mean, come on now. Like, I get it. You want to stay loyal, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. But I'm trying to win the chip.
It's the same thing that we're hearing from Bradley Beal. Like it's
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
insane. And like in
He's
Dame's,
annoying too.
yeah, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But it's crazy to think about Portland, you know. So they traded Gary Clark Jr. for Norm Powell, who they turned into Eric Bledsoe, because they were initially hesitant to, like, if they just like a year or two ago were like, or when this Ben Simmons stuff started, like, all right, well, we'll do, you know, Ben Simmons. They could have had Maxey, in all honesty, at that point.
Yes.
Tyrese Maxey, you know, picks or whatever from Philadelphia for Dame. You trade CJ for whatever you get. You theoretically still have Gary Trent Jr. You got Nasir Little. You got Anthony Simons. I mean, you're already like, that's a pretty star-studded team for someone who just started a rebuild. So
Right.
It's really just what could have been. And if I'm a Portland fan, I'm pissed right now, just in all honesty.
You got to look at it though, and just look at that trend, like you just said, from Gary Trent to Norman Powell to Eric Bledsoe, that you're not even sure he's going to even be there.
I know, dude, it's a tragedy. It really is. Like it is one of, like, you could write a book, like a Shakespearean book, about how tragic this story is.
Oh,
just
yes.
Absolute. To end up with Eric Bledsoe, I mean, come on, man.
And I'll say this: well, I went to a Trailblazers game in Portland. In October. And when I tell you that Dame played that night, when I tell you that nobody's in that stadium, like, and it's like so casual. Like, we literally talked to the guy who sold us the tickets because we're on a group trip. He literally was just like, man, like, I wish we just had more people in the stands. And I'm like, because everybody knew, like, I mean, you're a diehard fan, but it's like people know you're going to, like, you guys aren't going to contend.
Yeah. Well, we saw that recently with the Sacramento Kings when the Brooklyn Nets came into town. I mean, everybody saw the pictures of that stadium that was like, that's half empty, and that's being generous. Like, you know, if you have a team that has just this completely dysfunctional front office and they can't get out of their own way, and they're just not putting a quality product out there for the fans, how can you expect them to spend the egregious amount of money that you asked for to watch a bunch of, like, listen, I love Dennis Smith Jr. I thought he was going to be, you know, great when he came out. Nobody's buying a ticket to watch Dennis Smith Jr. except Dennis Smith Sr. Like, that's it. Like, there's nobody who, like, you can't expect people to come out for that. So, you know, I get it, you know, and I know Portland fans. I know they're legitimate fans out there, but it's just, this is a rough year for them. And it's been rough for a little bit. So it's, hopefully they get some change.
Everybody goes through the rebuild. Everybody.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Lakers went through the rebuild. Celtics went through the rebuild. Like, everybody goes through the rebuild. Yeah. And it happens because your stars age.
Yes.
You may not have a bridge star or bridge situation. So, yeah, you might lose for a couple seasons, but you see how quickly that you can, if you draft correctly and be able to make smart trades to get yourself a treasure chest of picks and young players or whatever, you can always start over. So I think that just like they should just rebuild, go through it for 2 years, and boom, they're back.
Look, if you're going to be bad anyway, at least make it worth your while. That's all I'm saying, you know. So, but you know, we talked a lot about Portland. You know, we talked a lot about Damian Lillard. What's going to happen with him? I think we might see an offseason trade. Obviously, the biggest comparison to Lillard is Bradley Beal, who it's been such a Ross and Rachel, you know, Willie won't, you know, get traded from the Washington Wizards this week. You know, it all started with Sam Amick and Fred Katz on the Athletic NBA trade show, talking about how they're not confident in both Beal wanting to stay in Washington and Washington wanting to re-sign him, because that's a boatload of money that you're going to be signing him to on that next contract. So it initially started there. Then Jake Fisher started talking about how the you know, there's really a lot of rumors about how Beal wants to stay. He's not going anywhere, everything such as that. And additionally with that, we then had more reports. I believe it was Fred Katz once again talking about, Bradley Beal, you know, he does want to stay in Washington, but he wouldn't say no to a trade necessarily if the right deal came along. Now, with all that said, Mark Stein has come out and he has said that Bradley Beal being traded is very unlikely at this point in time. So, barring a trade request, is what Stein said about Beal. He's not going to get traded. So, Justin, what do you think? Bradley Beal looks like he's out of reach for the Sixers. How do we feel about that?
I mean, he's just another guy. It's just like, come on, bro. Like, you're not going to win anything there. Like, I just think that, for the Sixers, he would be a great get. He would be a good co-star for Embiid. He can get a shot on, although the last few years he hasn't been really good of a three-point shooter as he was in the past, but that could just be due to high usage and him actually having to be the main player, so having a lot of defenses guarding him. You know how you see how some of these guys, if they're like, they get really open shots, they really make them. But I think that him not wanting out, it's just weird. It's like just weird going on because there was rumors like, around the draft about him wanting to leave and once Westbrook left, but then he came out, he wanted to stay. So it's just like, I don't know, you want to be the guy on the team, but any team that Bradley Beal is the best player on is not going to win a championship. Period. It's just not going to happen. And I mean, and even if they made some crazy move at the offseason, at the deadline and got Sabonis or something like, Sabonis and Bradley Beal, okay, that's a good combo. But are they winning the championship in the East? Probably not. So I just think that, he might just be one of those guys who, okay, I want this $210 million or whatever it's going to be, and then try to force my way out because just like everybody else, they sign the contract and somehow they find their way out the door. So I think that's the same play that he's trying to make. So
that's interesting that you said that. I haven't thought of that angle that you spoke of. Like you said, to get the money, and then I'll play a year, then be like, I don't like this. get me on out here. And it's the NBA. We all know it, that the players have the power. If they want to be moved, they will be moved, i.e. James Harden, who's about to do it for his second time. So it's like things like that. I do agree when that was an interesting angle that you put out there. And I'm saying with you though. Bradley Beal, I didn't understand that. I understand he's definitely heavy in the community in DC. He definitely loves staying there. Like he says that repeatedly, like that is his home. But someone always has a breaking point, and you always have a price. So to say someone would never leave an organization, I would never say. Now the percentage of the likelihood of it happening, then that's what we can discuss about when it comes to that. But everyone has a moment where, I mean, look at this year, how it started. Bradley Beal was on top of the mountain singing, I'm not going anywhere. I'm in DC. I'm staying. This is my home. I love it here. Like you said earlier, if you don't hear from me, don't believe it, X, Y, Z, the stuff, all that crap like that. But look at it now. Rumor after rumor. Well, I'm not against a trade now. I'm really not liking what the upstairs is doing with the construction of the roster now. The Wizards just the other day put out that literally everyone is on the table except Bradley Beal, essentially like that. So why do a star wants to have to sit through something like that all over again? You just changed my whole team within the last 3 years. 3 different teams within the last 3 years. So you can't sit here and say definitively that he's going to stay or leave, but trust me, everyone has a moment and a breaking point where it's just like, you know what? If I want to win, and that's the key, if they want to win. Because if you're about the money, hey, stay, go get the Supermax, chill out and live your life. But if he wants to win, he'll be said. And I'm a big with when there's smoke, there's fire. Things just don't come out. People just don't make up reports just because they hearing something from somebody.
And I just want to piggyback on one thing, Zach, my bad. Just one thing about the Wizards. And specifically, this whole thing about Bradley Beal not getting along with Spencer Dinwiddie. And I could have called that. Like, I could have called that a long time ago. Spencer Dinwiddie seems like a horrible person to play with. Like, just like
I never understood it when it happened. I'm with you.
Like bad. And no wonder why it was rumors about Danny Green signing trade for Spencer Dinwiddie. No, like he's just plays like he thinks he's better than he is. He's a solid point guard.
That's it.
But he thinks he's better than he is. and it's just too much. So no wonder why they don't get along.
Yeah, I mean, but when your teammate, I think it's bigger than Dinwiddie though, because like you got to think about he's teammates with Dinwiddie, the big sweater himself, Kyle Kuzma, Montrez Bull in a China shop, Harrell. Like, I mean, there's all sorts of people on that roster who would. Davis Bertans, like, I mean, man, like to me, I would be so frustrated just at his existence on the roster. Like, I would have taken him as a Sixer if we also got Bradley Beal. But at the same time, it's like you can't be anything but mad at a guy who's warming the bench at 16 million. So it's crazy what's happened in the span of a week in terms of Bradley Beal news or not news, depending on how you look at it. However, there is one player in the NBA even more exciting than Bradley Beal, who we talked about, the smoke around Bradley Beal. That forget the smoke. You can already see the flames around this player. That's James Harden. Right?
Getting warm, Zach. It's getting warm.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So we're going to take a quick break. All right. And when we get back, we're going to dive right into those brand new, fresh, delicious James Harden rumors and all that great information there. So we'll be back in just a bit. This episode of the Baseline Scoop is brought to you by La Terrain Watches. Shop the best collection of affordable luxury watches online at la-terrain.com. Don't forget to use promo code BLS10 for 10% off your order. All right, welcome back to this exciting episode of the Baseline Scoop, talking a little trade rumors, trades that have already happened, just how they impact the Sixers. So once again, I'm with my man Justin Crosby. I'm with AB Aaron Bell. Check out their work on Philly Sports Network. Just fantastic. Very happy to go to war with these guys talking Sixers every day. So speaking of the Sixers, the big news of the day, James Harden, right? So I see a report, just to kind of give you perspective of what's going on in my day. I see a report, mentions James Harden, mentions the Sixers. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. This is probably just, whomever, insert beat writer here saying, oh, the Sixers are expected to pursue Harden at the deadline. Like, whatever. Everyone already knew that. That's not news. I double take. I take a look again. That is Shams Charania. And he's saying that, yeah, okay, Sixers expected to look at James Harden at the trade deadline. Again, not surprising whatsoever. But then he says, right? Then he says, and the Brooklyn Nets are open to listening. And that just, like, when I tell you that unlocked my world, like, I mean, I immediately, like, first thought was, nobody can take me down from this high that I'm on now. Like, this is like, nothing can ruin my day, right? Like, someone could steal my car and I'm gonna have an AB smile on my face. Like, that's how happy that I now am for the rest of the day. So AB, what were your first thoughts when you saw that report?
Same thing. Once I seen the Shams tweet notification come across my phone, literally it's crazy, like, because we've been in this cycle for a good while now, trade rumor after trade rumor after trade rumor. So it's just like, all right, here we go. Yes, we know we're going to presume. We all know that doesn't have to be reported. But like you said, once you read the last couple lines and it's sitting there saying they're open to trading them now, and now they're getting more detail, that they're actually getting more specific, saying that they're actually going to talk about it this week leading up to the deadline. It's like, okay, oh, we actually got something here. And I told you before we got on, my phone going off, group chats, friends, colleagues, whatever. Hey, what you think? What's going on here? And to me, I was just like elated. I was like, hey, everyone, slow down. Let me get my breath. Let me look at this. Let me analyze this. Let me read everything. Let me get all the information. Yeah. So I actually can, like, understand and see how true this is. And it looks like it's definitely something that's, like you said earlier, there's no more smoke. It's definitely lit right now. You definitely smell the wood burning. You definitely smell the fire. So it's like something's there. If they reach the finish line with it, obviously we have some time. We got so many days to get to there. But it looks like it's something that's a real possibility. And where even confirmed it with me is literally after that coming out, Now you got Sacramento. Oh, they're offering this now for the Ben Simmons. Now, so it's like, oh, now everyone wants to come back to the Ben Simmons party now.
Well, it's like my thing too is like when Shams even like announced it, because like sometimes stuff like this gets out in the league before it gets out to the public and everything like that. Even with Shams or with Woj reporting, whatever the case may be. In that same report, I believe it was that same report, Shams also talks about, all of a sudden now the Minnesota Timberwolves are interested in both Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris. All of a sudden, they're willing to take on both guys. And like that, I when I tell you I was grinning before and I look like the Grinch right after, like that just made my day even more. But Justin, what did you think? What did you think when you saw the news?
I mean, I was definitely surprised, like you guys, of the fact that they're talking about a deal right now. Like all the smoke has been around the offseason and whether we want to keep Ben to the offseason for Harden and everything like that. And that seemed real to the point where now it says the NBA would investigate if it was something that happened in the offseason. So now here we are. And although it hasn't happened yet, and what's the likelihood of it happening? Who knows? But the fact that there's real smoke and it's right there, I said, okay, this is real. Then I sat back and I thought about how, Zach, I told you, I watched the League Pass and stuff. So literally, I was watching the Nets and Sacramento Kings, and Harden was just like nonchalant, no effort. Yes. And I'm just like, so everything that they said about, in these reports, it's real and it's coming out on the court because he probably, like, the whole Kyrie situation is probably a super buzzkill. Then, I mean, KD and you can't do anything about KD being hurt, but it was more so like he came there thinking that him, Kyrie, and KD were going to be together. And when this whole thing happened with Kyrie and the part-time thing and all that, he probably just like over it. And if he can get to a place that gives him another good chance to win a championship, he probably is welcoming it. And all that smoke about, like we said before, like guys saying, "Oh, I didn't really say that." No, you said that, and it leaked out like it was supposed to, and it got to the right people. And here we are, a week, almost just under a week to the deadline, and there could be real movement.
Yeah,
and I would add to that. I would add to that with the James. We've seen this before when he might not have said it outwardly this time, saying he wants to be moved. But look at the actions. Like you said, because I seen the exact same game that you was just speaking of. When he was in Houston and he was done, he was out there, gave him 20 points, but he wasn't really no real effort into the game. And you've seen this trend when James Harden is disinterested in something, it's hard for him not to show it or outwardly when he's not into something like that. So that's definitely. And then today he's not even playing tonight. So it's like, all right, so he's
got hamstring tightness, which is like, isn't that a little coincidental considering
exactly. I could pull a hammy any second, anytime. Like you can make that injury up anytime. So it's a lot of different things you can look at and point at and just take from and say, let's just connect the dots here. Like it's something here. What it is, we're gonna find out in a couple of days for sure.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's definitely a lot of parallels to when he was out in Houston. I think you're both spot on with that. I mean, the only thing really missing is that he's not wearing that fat suit from Big Mama's House or Nutty Professor. Like that's the only thing. And to our knowledge, he's not hanging out at the strip club, all the time instead. And so, other than that, it's pretty much the exact same thing. So, it definitely seems like like things are we're beyond smoke at this point. So I cannot wait for the trade deadline, but there's still that all important question of, well, what's it going to take? Because as much as we like to believe it, it's not going to be Ben Simmons straight up for James Harden. So Justin, what do you think a deal looks like for James Harden?
So I think we talk about it's like this posturing that's been going on from like every team and what it would take, and the Sixers really want them. So, but then Brooklyn could lose. It's like so much. So it's kind of hard, but like I think that I'll say two things. I feel like everybody should be on the table besides Embiid. I don't want them to trade Maxey.
Okay.
So, I would want them to keep Maxey, but I feel like Brooklyn, of course, will want Maxey. And then if Max is the hold up in the deal, here we are a year ago, almost a year ago to the same thing where Maxey apparently held up the deal last time.
Yeah.
Or what they say. But I think realistically, a deal that could get James Harden to Philly would look like Ben Simmons, Danny Green, Matisse Thybulle, and a first-round draft pick. And that I feel like that could get James to. I did think that could get James to Philly.
Yeah, and then at that point you just fill it out with whatever lower level. I mean, like obviously Brooklyn's trying to get rid of Paul Millsap any way they can, so you just fill it out with those lower level guys, and you're probably set there. I mean, do you feel the same? Maybe like, do you feel like a little bit different? Are you keeping is Maxey untouchable for you? Because I've had a lot of people, when I go ahead and I say, so for me, I don't say Maxey's untouchable, or not Maxey. I don't say Thybulle's untouchable. I should say. Right. Maxey's a different story if you ask me, but. I've got a lot of people, talking to me saying how, well, if we trade Thybulle, especially along with Ben, we're guaranteeing a playoff loss to the Nets. And I'll get to my thoughts on that a little bit more, but is that in line with your thinking, AB? We can't trade Thybulle, or we can't trade Maxey, or everybody's on the table?
Well, yeah, for me, everyone is definitely obviously and we don't have to mention Embiid. We know he's not.
No, don't even say his name. Like he doesn't. He never enters the conversation, right? This isn't Instagram, NBA trade rumors. Like Joel Embiid is not entering any trade negotiations unless he's telling other teams what he wants. Like that's the only way that's happening.
So they're not untouchable. Maxey, I like him. I want to keep him. He's at that level of untouchable, but obviously if the right deal was to come along, like let's say Dame Lillard was to all of a sudden say, you know what, I want out as well. I would have to consider that. I would literally have to consider that when it comes to that. I mean, I would say this, and I got a question for you guys. I'm gonna flip it. Does it really take a lot to get James Harden? Because I don't have the numbers and everything in front of me, but I'm just looking at it just from the outside in, just looking at the whole thing. I know they want James. I know they want Ben. But then you have the added element of these other teams who was in the sweepstakes for Ben Simmons, seeing that this is something coming along. And now, like you just said, the Kings saying, okay, well, now we'll take Ben and Tobias now and other things like that. So does that and we know the Nets don't have much to give other than like a James Harden, and they don't really have any picks or real players. So like, does it really take that? Could you see a situation where it's like a Ben Simmons and Seth Curry and maybe a pick or something, or Ben Simmons and a Danny Green pairing, something like that, to be able to get him? Because I believe something like that can happen. And I don't know why, I just feel like Daryl is trying to work around something like that and keep the younger talent here. But I believe if it does come down to it, it will probably be Thybulle that will be attached along with Ben Simmons going out to Brooklyn for James Harden. So, I mean, is that something that you guys think that could happen, possibly?
Yeah, what do you think about that, Justin?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's so hard to tell right now because it's like each side thinks they have leverage.
Right.
And
exactly.
like and then what type of leverage? Like, so it's weird. Like, honestly, the salary is only Ben and like Danny that like makes it work. So like Danny didn't want to come back here anyway, right? So it's like, okay, do you send them to? He plays better with Ben anyway too, because Ben gets him threes. He hasn't been that good this year because those fast break threes aren't there for him to get his volume up. So it's like, okay, that's a package that you trade there. Or do we get a first round pick? Cool. If we don't keep the pick, do we give up one of the young guys? To me, I feel like if Daryl can pull it off without giving up one of the young guys, that'll be good, because then that still leaves the door open for a salary filler plus young guys to get somebody else. So say and I'm just saying, this is just talking, like some type of other super team, like if Bradley Beal does become available after we do acquire James Harden, maybe we say, okay, he's going to leave anyway, sign and trade. We'll give you Tobias, Maxey, and Thybulle and a pick for Bradley Beal. That way, you allow yourself to just have that war chest of items to get him. So, I hope that we can we only have to give up Danny and the first round pick for Ben. But then, nobody wants to be a loser of a trade.
Right.
No, exactly. And that's been the hang up in a lot of these potential Ben Simmons trades is, that especially Daryl doesn't want to be the loser. And everybody going up against Daryl knows that. And so they don't want to be the loser.
Right.
So I think if there's a shot at that, AB, it's Simmons, Curry, whatever first round pick they find more valuable in Brooklyn, if it's this year, if it's next year's. If after you get past that, things get a little more, difficult. Can it happen? Possibly, James Harden and Bradley Beal have, they're both having down years, especially Beal, but Harden has all these other, issues going on in Brooklyn right now. It's beyond just the on the court performance or lack thereof, so is it theoretically possible? Yes.
Okay.
Do I think it's likely? Unfortunately not. What I'm really curious at, though, is the involvement of a third team, especially now that you're getting all of this Ben Simmons, interest, especially thinking about like Sacramento, for instance. Ben Simmons is probably the best player not named James Harden involved in a 3-team trade with this, right? However, if you take a second to think, does Brooklyn even really want Ben Simmons? Because Kyrie's got the ball in his hands a lot. KD's got the ball in his hands a lot. What do you do with Ben if he doesn't have the ball in his hands? You put him in the dunker spot. How great did that work in Philadelphia? You're running into the same issues. So I think even if they do end up taking Ben Simmons for James Harden, they're going to move Simmons again in the offseason, right?
Okay.
But it's really curious to think, like, I'm thinking especially Sacramento, if you can work in, does a Tyrese Halliburton change things for Brooklyn? Make it a little more enticing, especially if he's paired with a Harrison Barnes, for instance, because Harrison Barnes is a great fit in Brooklyn, right? Buddy Hield even, and I think he's got a little bit of a negative value contract, but whatever the case, I think he's got a good fit there, So if you're working in this third team, whomever they are, if they're willing to pony up the value that Brooklyn wants, I think that we could be looking at a pretty solid 3-team trade that helps all 3 teams.
Right. I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking, like you mentioned Steph Curry with the James Harden deal. So, it's James Harden. So we give up Steph Curry, it is what it is. Do you think Embiid, because he's been trying to build these partnerships with these guys since JJ Redick has left, him and Steph have really good chemistry together.
Yeah.
Although Steph always turns the ball over once a game, throwing the behind the head pass.
Yeah, he does do that. Yeah.
But do you think that Embiid could push to keep Seth and give something else up because of the chemistry that they have? Or do you think Embiid is like, man, just go get James and I'll build a chemistry with him? Like,
if that's something else as Danny Green, then sure. I think absolutely. Like, I think Embiid is fully okay with, Danny? Yeah, that's great. Seth, maybe send Danny, What, we got to send another pick if we send it? Yeah, send the other pick and Danny instead of sending Seth. Like, I do think Embiid is at that point, but if it's like it's Seth or the deal doesn't happen, Joel Embiid, he's going to be like, let's just get Harden in here.
Yeah. So it's just, listen, I want James Harden. So as long as hopefully Max is not involved in the deal. Yeah. But I just hope that if this deal happens, that we have some subsequent moves happening to get some more defensive versatility, because we can't count on Isaiah Joe to be our and Tyrese Maxey to be our defensive stoppers.
Yeah. So Maxey, I think Maxey can be a stopper, but he can't be the lone guy is the problem. You're gonna need other. So one question, we're all just sharing questions with each other. But then again, what else is a podcast? Right. But what happens with Tobias Harris if a James Harden deal happens?
That's what I was going to get to.
Yeah. Like, do you think that there's any shot that he's traded and kind of, you split up that 35-ish million or whatever? Like, offensively, it makes sense to leave him, right?
Right.
But if you think about, like, and listen, LA is probably out of this now that they made that Portland trade. But if you think about a team, possibly like Dallas, for instance, right? Who they might find value in adding a player like Tobias Harris. Could you add in, a couple more athletes on the way back in that deal? If you bring back like a, I don't know, a Tim Hardaway Jr., a Finney Smith, and like a Dwight Powell or whatever for Harris, and then two of the lower guys like Isaiah Joe or whatever, something like that. Like, you're adding athleticism, you're still keeping a scoring punch. Does it seem like something that could happen?
I think there's a possible. My bad. Go ahead, Eben.
I mean, I was just saying that's literally where the angle I was gonna come from, because I do feel like that. That's the great. I feel like if Ben is to be moved, Daryl likes to shoot threes. Daryl's like the perimeter game. Other than Joel Embiid, that's the only person he believes should be in that mid-range to post area. Everyone else get on the perimeter. So I do believe that it's highly likely that a Tobias move can correspond with that. What it might be, I'm not sure. Maybe revisit the Kings, who maybe you can get Buddy Hield maybe now. If you gotta lose, let's say a Seth Curry maybe in the deal with James Harden or something like that. I mean, I do believe that those two guys are real candidates to not be on the Sixers team after the trade deadline. I really do believe that. I really do believe that that's something that can happen.
So I believe I can agree, but my only thing is it just depends on what happens in the Harden deal, because
Sure.
If we give up two first-round picks, then I feel like in order to Tobias is not a bad NBA player.
I agree.
But some people look at his play and the value of his contract being a little bit over. So you may have to pay to get off of him. So what is that paying? Is that a first-round pick?
Right.
Yeah, it might be a first-round pick because I got to pay the guy who averages 19 points a game, $40 million a year for the next 2 years after this season. So it's like, then what are we getting?
Yeah.
That pushes us over the hump to say, okay, all right, fine, we're getting Buddy Hield and somebody else, but I'm just trying to think like how much we would have to pay to get.
No, it's a good point. I mean, I think really what it comes down to is that you have to have the right team, the right partner in that sense. So, a couple that come to mind. I already mentioned Dallas. I think makes a little bit of sense. I'd also say, theoretically, if you do a 3-team trade for James Harden involving the Sacramento Kings, see if they're once again interested potentially in Tobias Harris, right? So if you go ahead and do that, there's a little more salary that you can work with, so you can theoretically take back, say, both a Buddy Hield and a Joe Harris, who seems to fall out of favor a little bit in Brooklyn also. So, you're saving Brooklyn a little bit extra money in that case as well. That might be a legitimate possibility, as crazy as it sounds. You're probably emptying the vault, save of Maxey and Thibault, of all your assets. But if you can come out of this with James Harden, Buddy Hield, and Joe Harris, I mean, that's not bad one bit.
No, and then we got Jordan Yang starting at the 4.
Nobody's perfect. Like, no team is perfect. But or I'll even say, like, there's guys in Brooklyn who they're not in love with. There's Paul Millsap could find his way to Philadelphia, and is he a real starter? Probably not, but he could definitely fill some minutes. DeAndre Bembry, you could go small at the 4, and he's a versatile defender. That's an option too. The buyout market, that's going to happen too. And if you have James Harden, you are a much more appealing team. So
for the buyout,
I personally, it's, Tobias Harris even aside, just getting James Harden is the answer to all of the questions from there for me.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. I mean, like I say, it doesn't necessarily have to be the Kings, but it's the trade deadline. There's other teams out there you might not hear a lot about.
Sure.
That you can have a subsequent move with a Tobias, that you can get some good value back with, like you said, filling those roster spots that you need after whoever goes out when it comes to James Harden. And like you said,
I mean, the Pacers, the Hornets, there's so many teams that just don't get talked about. You know what? I'm honestly a little surprised the Hawks aren't more interested in Tobias Harris, because I think he's a really good fit there with Trae Young, with Clint Capella. They're looking to move off of John Collins regardless, right? So you don't need Collins involved in the deal, but if you work something around, say, Danilo Gallinari and Bogdan Bogdanovic, who they're also looking to get rid of, and then they get Tobias Harris and draft capital, how's that not a win for Atlanta? Yeah. Well, what I want to end with, guys, is we've gone over the entire Harden trade. I think the consistent, really answer that we have as far as is anyone really untouchable, or especially Matisse Thybulle, is that no one's really untouchable, which is kind of always the case. Is that for the right offer, no one's. But there's certain guys we prefer not to deal with. So for me personally, I'm not moving Maxey in this deal because I know that I can have this conversation again in the summer. Now, I'm not trying to wait till summer. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, if my options are trade Maxey now for Harden or trade for Harden later without Maxey, I'll wait the 6 months or whatever. So the last thing I wanted to end on is just final predictions. AB, what do you think the Sixers do with the deadline?
The deadline is Ben Simmons will be gone. I
like it. I like it.
I'm gonna go ahead with it. We're at this point now. Yeah. And I feel like Daryl Morey is at a point where this is where he wanted to be at initially. These conversations, that's all he wanted to do. Long as you have a conversation and we're actually having dialogue about creating something, creating a package, this is all he wanted to do. Just get in the room, have a conversation. And I believe he's going to work as hard as to make this move because he sees what Joel Embiid is doing right now. For all the flack Daryl Morey is getting, as far as they want him to make a move. What are you doing? Sitting hands. I feel like I've always been there. I have a saying with my friends. I stand with Morey. Because it's like he plays this. He played this right essentially like that. Yeah. I feel like at the end of the day, he will be moved. And I feel like there'll be other moves that come with that because once that piece is moved, now the floodgates open. Now he can really construct the team how he wants to be around Joel Embiid, and they can go forward. So after this trade deadline and this All-Star game, I feel like we'll have a whole different Sixers team that we're ready to go, ready to rock, and ready to make this run.
I love it. Justin, what do you feel like?
So I feel I'm a little less optimistic than AB, but I do feel like it's hard. I feel like in regards to Ben Simmons, it's Harden or bust. There's no other trade that's going to happen with Ben Simmons. No Tyrese Halliburton and stuff. No, whoever else and stuff. It's going to be Harden or the summertime. As far as other moves, I do think that, Morey is going to have to package some other things together to try to get some upgrades on the wing or maybe another guard. So I can definitely see a situation where if, we don't include Danny or something like that, a Furkan, Danny situation to upgrade around the roster, as well as I could see them putting a couple of like fringe young guys together, whether it be like, Reed and Bassey to try to get something, and you give somebody like 2 or 3 second round picks just to try to move to get some of that, like, because I think that we need a ball handler and I think we need a wing. And I think that Moore will try to do that. Hopefully it'll work out better than George Hill, but
man, I love that move at the time. Like, listen,
me too.
The math was there. Like, that was a good move. It was better than trading Maxey for Kyle Lowry. I don't give a damn what anybody says. That was the right move. George Hill just pooped the bed on that one. That's all. You can't say anything else. Like, the
math was there, but he never came with it.
Yeah, and Milwaukee, he's not been great. Like, it's sad because I've been a George Hill fan for a long time. Like, it's not the man's fault he got traded for Kawhi, but like, I really like that move. I will stand by that move till the day I die because what the only problem is that with an older player, and this is the same thing that's true with Kyle Lowry, you just never know when they hit a certain age. Lowry hasn't been great in Miami this year, so I hear you loud and clear. I think my prediction when it comes to the deadline, though, I think this Harden stuff's real. I'm trying to really ground myself and be realistic and try to. I'm not. I think Harden's happening. In my mind, this deal is. I'm probably going to feel a little bad after it's made, noticing what we gave up. And then the minute that I see him in those Spectrum City uniforms, everything's going to be immediately better. So I'm excited for it. And Justin, I love what you said about possibly shipping off some of the younger guys, trying to open up a roster spot. I love all these young guys on this roster. You need roster spots because this team, with or without Harden, but especially with, they're going to be very active in the buyout market. So I'm really excited to see what happens in the next week. And hopefully we have another superstar in the city of Philadelphia. But, guys, is there anything that you wanted to plug? AB, starting with you. Why don't you tell the people where they can find you, find your work, everything like that?
Yeah, so obviously my work on phillysportsnetwork.com, obviously writing for the Sixers, definitely go on there, check all those articles out from all of us, essentially like that. So great place. Love those guys over there. And then also have my own podcast as well called the Open Gym Podcast. Is everywhere by that name. So Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Open Gym Podcast. And then we actually just recently started on Apple Podcasts, and also Spotify as well, Open Gym Podcast. So you're on there as well. You can follow me on Instagram at only_AB__. And then man, I'm here, I'm around, I'm working.
Yeah, and that Twitter ad, that's only AB __ or only AB1 __ is that right? Or
Twitter, yeah, it's the opposite. So it's only. Dang, you got me the mixed up. So yeah, Instagram was only one AB __, and then Twitter is only one __ AB.
Make sure you use that double underscore, because there's somebody else. We've run into that problem on Twitter before, and she does not appreciate what we're trying to talk to Aaron. Exactly. So, Justin, how about you, man?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. Will Work for Sneaks. Yes, it's an old name because I love sneakers as well.
Who doesn't, man?
All right.
But yes,
I don't trust somebody that don't like sneakers. Can I just say that, outright? I mean, how can you? How can you?
So that's where you can find me. All my craziness on there. Then you can find me on Philly Sports Network. All my articles and stuff. And then going forward, you can find me here. Announcement will be made soon, but you'll be able to find me here on the Baseline Scoop. So yeah, man, you can find me in those places. Please take a listen, read, and listen to and read Zach and AB, the whole team, man. I'm telling you, we are killing it, and it's as we say, to the moon.
Yes,
absolutely. PSN to the moon. PSN now, of course, part of the Schneps family. Super excited about that. You know it. So, it's gonna be a mad week just waiting for this trade deadline. And we'll be sure to have another pod or video or whatever we decide to do, analyzing everything that does happen, everything that doesn't happen. But for now, thank you all so much for listening, for watching. This has been Zach Ciavolella, Justin, AB, and we just hit you with the Baseline Scoop.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.